A lot of people thought Billy Napier would be out. Last year he did save his tenure. Had a chance to run it back with DJ Lagway and a talented cast, and unfortunately, some of the issues that plagued him throughout his tenure from a negative standpoint just were never remedied. Right, the constant on-field sloppiness. They happened again on Saturday. We're running out 12 men for a critical play. I mean, you could write the Billy Napier epitaph and it would be the 12th man, basically, right? Which should be a Texas A&M thing. If it's a Gainesville thing, that's a problem. Like they had a lot like the same stuff at Utah. And I think there were a lot of good things that he did there from a personnel standpoint for sure. Let's tackle this from the standpoint of what could, in theory, a new guy be taking over there in Gainesville, and who are some of the players on this team who maybe other programs are looking to go after?
Yeah, but I think this roster is pretty turnkey for whoever steps in. Billy Napier, is not leaving the cupboard bare at all. And I think you can go to that Mississippi State game this past weekend. I mean, Florida, 2 true freshman corners played over 50 snaps, and that was due to injury. But I think specifically on the defensive side of the ball, they've recruited the high school ranks so well, and I've long looked at the 2 deep and I've been like that guy coming out of high school, at some point they're going to have all these guys that are SEC caliber with NFL potential on defense. And then you flip it over to offense. Obviously, DJ Lagway, the quarterback, everyone's in love with Dallas Wilson and Vernell Brown, and Jaden Baugh, the running back. Now they're going to lose some starters up front on the offensive line. But again, Billy Napier invested in that unit. It had 2 position coaches at one point. It was 5 + 1 = 1 when it came to the offensive linemen. So, they're going to lose Jake Slaughter. They're going to lose Austin Barber. I mean, 2 guys that were preseason all SEC type of players. But Najee Harris comes back. Caden Jones comes back. So I think bottom line, this roster is in a really, really good spot. And Bud, let me ask you this, the fallout, it's always fun with the coaching changes. A lot of people are pointing to recruiting as being the issue. I don't necessarily see it that way. I mean, what's your assessment being a guy that's in the Sunshine State?
Yeah, I mean, I thought Napier did a good job recruiting. I don't think he was quite as good at it as Mario, but he was certainly way better than Mike Norvell at recruiting the high school level. I thought their player development was generally decent, right? I just think they were, especially relative to the size of the staff with which he was afforded, and Florida really gave Billy every chance to succeed, both in terms of dollars, staff size, and patience. And that he failed is basically just on him. But plus, I think maybe some Lagway injury stuff, mixed in there. But I don't think that injury was really the issue here, or sorry, I don't think recruiting was really the issue here in Gainesville. Honestly, they got a lot of nice pieces in there. They did win some high-profile recruiting battles, and they also, I think, did a pretty nice job of scouting it and getting some of those sort of undervalued guys in some ways in. That's shoot. If you took Billy Napier's recruiting with Dan Mullen's coaching, you got a real winner there. I think we know what bad recruiting looks like in Gainesville. It looks like what Dan Mullen did. Not what Billy did.
I'm going to bring up 2 things. The first one's DJ Lagway, and I try to raise my hand back during the spring, and as we got into preseason magazine season or whatever you want to call that, when you're at the grocery store and you got a Lindy's in front of you and it's all right, here's DJ Lagway's face. To me, that always felt a little rushed. And I know it's easy. Hey, hindsight's 2020. But having scouted DJ Lagway in high school as a junior, as a senior, we ranked him our number 1 quarterback, made him a 5-star before everyone else. I never thought it was going to be best quarterback in the SEC, best quarterback in college football year 2, right? And I think injuries have certainly played a factor here. But man, you pull up his 24/7 sports profile, Bud, the second line of my scouting report on DJ Lagway is still very much a work in progress as a passer, but has improved greatly in every key statistical category. And then at the end, I say, likely going to need a developmental year or 2, but could be utilized in situational packages and provide some magic. And I just think DJ Lagway, everyone got a taste of him as a true freshman because of what what he was able to do after Graham Mertz went down with an injury. But I always still thought like, hey, this is going to be a longer burn until DJ Lagway is playing as the number 3 player in the country, playing as the number 1 quarterback. And I think a lot of fans, when they look at the rankings, they assume these guys at the top of the board are just complete products and ready to go. Maybe Travis Hunter, maybe Jeremiah Smith have, kind of recalibrated expectations. But with DJ Lagway, it was still, hey, we love what he can be. We love the highs. We love, the traits, everything that he could be. But I just felt like it was a little rushed. And, ultimately, hey, maybe DJ Lagway saved Billy Napier's job, but at the same time, maybe DJ Lagway is the reason why Billy Napier's not here, because there was so much expectations heading into the 2025 campaign, and he was injured, and it just didn't work out.
So in looking at this, I mean, I'll certainly hand up guilty as far as DJ thinking he was going to be a lot better this year than he was. Part of it, I think, is the sequencing, right? The fact that you had the LSU and Ole Miss games in succession last year, to me, was like, all right, maybe that's random sequencing of just 2 events happening back to back, or maybe he's kind of turning a corner. I think to your point that like the lack of an offseason, especially with some of the receivers for Florida, like that was certainly a concern going into the season, and one that I think really bore out. Obviously, like Dallas was hurt in the offseason. Trey Wilson was hurt as well. I mean, he's not really like a true downfield, like full route tree type receiver. And then you had what? You had Mizell, you had Sturdivant come in. Yeah, like they did not really gel, and it showed. And also, I just don't think that Billy's offense, he just should not be calling plays for a high level program. I don't think that this offense is any kind of special. I think he's really good at recruiting. I think he's good at hiring people for the most part. I just don't think this offensive stuff's a strength. Maybe quarterback coaching is a strength. When we went to that little presentation he did at Nike, like a lot of people liked the quarterback coaching thing he did.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing, like, I'm not an X and O's guy. I'm not going to diagnose the coaching staff. I will say this: just what is burned into my memory is DJ Lagway at the Elite 11 finals, right? The summer before his senior year, and then it was the growth he made from then to the end of his senior season. Led his school, Willis, the Wildcats with a K, to their best finish in like 60 years. It was huge strides. And I don't think since he's arrived in Gainesville due to injury, he's been able to make those same strides. Like, you got to throw passes, right? You got to see live defenses. And I think that has hampered him. But the other thing I also want to bring up, because like I said, there's a lot of, takes and opinions on what went wrong with Florida. Like, I don't think recruiting is an issue. And if you go back to this time last year, Florida's 2025 recruiting class, so that's the one that includes Vernell Brown, Dallas Wilson, all the young guys, it was sitting 50th in the rankings.
Yeah.
50th. Okay. And that's because everyone thought Billy Napier was going to get fired. Now, DJ Lagway, like you said, he leads them to victories over Ole Miss, LSU. Florida shoots all the way up into the top 10, right? And I just don't think like recruiting is the root cause. Billy Napier went out and got DJ Lagway. He got Jaden Ball. He went to different parts of the country. And why I bring that up going outside of the Sunshine State is NFL draft trends continue to signal that the players coming out of Florida, like the high profile ones, aren't hitting. And I wrote about this after the 2025 NFL draft, right? So back in May, Florida just had one player selected in the first round. So the state of Florida, the kids that played high school football in Florida, aside from IMG Academy, a lot of those guys are transplants from all around the country. Just one player drafted. That's after 5 2 years ago and 4 this past year. And you spin it ahead to the 2026 NFL draft. I think it's going to be another down year for the Sunshine State. And I wrote about it for 24/7 Sports, like talking with different college contacts, talking with, personnel guys, GMs. Hey, what's up here? And what I kept getting back is the recruits in Florida, the high profile ones, usually don't have a foundational base compared to some of these kids in California, but really Texas and Georgia, where high school football is king. The other thing is, in Florida, you can just transfer high schools and there's zero
God,
punishment.
yeah.
There's multiple like 4 and 5-star recruits this season that have started at one high school, played games, and are now at another high school. I mean, it's kind of the Wild West here. One staffer told me, like, yeah, that transaction nature just doesn't really go away. And then the other thing, the high school football coaches in the state of Florida are amongst some of the lowest paid in the country. And, but you're up here in Orlando.
Yeah.
We go back 5 years ago, like, if you, I had to make a list of the top 5 high school football coaches in Central Florida. Those guys are all coaching in Georgia, Alabama, or South Carolina now. They're going to go get paid and take care of their families elsewhere. So, why I bring that up is you see these stories out here. It's like, well, Florida could have done a little bit more on the recruiting trail. It's like, well, could they have? I mean, let's go through some of these 5-stars like that from recent years from Florida. Like, do they make the roster better? Does Keon Keeley make Florida better? Probably not. Does Jordan Hall at Georgia make Florida different? I don't think so. Zay Mincy at Alabama, we'll see. Florida was always going to struggle to get the IMG Academy offensive linemen because, again, they come from other parts of the country. Like CJ Baxter, Hakeem Williams, are those guys different makers? I don't think so. Cormani McLean, I mean, he's now at Florida. So I just find it interesting. And I know we're going to talk about Florida State, but this blue chip high-end talent in the Sunshine State just really isn't meeting expectations. And Florida has built their recruiting classes through the backyard, and they've supplemented in Georgia, Texas, all around the country. So I don't think recruiting's really the downfall for Billy Napier. And again, I think whoever steps in, like this roster, you're going to need to get some transfer portal guys, but it's going to be ready to go, especially if they can hold on to DJ Lagway.